on this episode of the Engaging Marketeer, I'm probably going to get myself into trouble. Potentially a lot of trouble, actually. I put a post on LinkedIn a while back, and we'll put a link to that below this podcast, so it'll be in the description, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description on YouTube, or in the show notes on iTunes, Spotify, whatever you're watching this or listening to this on. Put the link to the LinkedIn post, where I talked about people in networking groups who don't pay. People who you end up working with, and they basically owe you money. They end up on your debtors list, and they decide they're not going to pay you, and they piss off and end up, you end up out of pocket. What happens? What happens there? Because in the UK, and I've got some listeners on this in the US and other countries as well. In the UK, we tend to have this, what can you say, this attitude where we don't like to say bad things about people. We don't like to kick up a fuss. We don't like to make a fuss where, airing dirty laundry in public is the phrase. We don't like to do that. We like to keep things quiet, keep things under the carpet. Don't say bad things about people if you don't have to, that sort of thing. And I get that. It's a mentality in the UK. That's fine. But what it does mean is when people in networking groups, in networking organizations, either don't pay or they do a shit job. Maybe you've hired a plasterer who's completely screwed up your house. That wasn't a hypothetical, by the way. Maybe you hire a plasterer who's completely screwed up your house, and you end up losing a load of money because you have to get it all ripped off again and then done again by somebody else. Do you let other people know that that's happened, that actually they were shit, that the job was terrible, and you had to get it redone and you lost a lot of money? Do you tell people that? No, we typically don't in the UK. And the problem is then they'll end up getting recommended to someone else and referred to someone else, and they'll use them and they'll have a similar experience. And they'll be like, oh my God, that was terrible. Why didn't anybody tell me? And this happened to us, I say, was it earlier this year? It started last year, earlier this year, where we ended up working for somebody in a networking group. And I alluded to this on a previous podcast where I talked about things that you shouldn't do as a web designer. And one of them was copy another website. One of them was, if a client comes to you and says, this is the website we've got before, I want you to do exactly the same as that for this one. You should never do it. And it was kind of because of this instance that we now have that rule that we don't do that. If a client comes to us and says, I want you to copy this website, we will not do it now. And we did this for this particular client. He came to us and said, I've got this website, I want you to copy it. I want it exactly the same as that for this new business. And I didn't know that's what we asked, what had been asked. I didn't know that. And one of our guys did that. And he didn't like it. One of the criticisms was that it showed no originality whatsoever. It's like, well, of course it fucking didn't. We've done exactly what you asked us to do. We've copied that website that you want us to copy. And what do you expect, quite frankly? You're just going to copy that, but it's going to look different. It's going to be different. And essentially this went on for some time. And as with some people who have this kind of attitude, they decided to just go quiet, just disappeared, and didn't reply to any emails, any attempts to call, and ended up missing payments. And then it snowballed, and eventually we ended up having to do what we do, following our processes, because we've got some very good debt collection processes, which were created by the wonderful David Harrington Wright, for those who know David Harrington Wright, who sadly passed away a while back. He's a lovely guy. He was in debt collection. He created all of our processes for us and did all of this for basically when you have people that don't pay, which happens. It happens. So all of this was followed, as you would expect. And we got I didn't get that paperwork because that's not my address. And the guy was moving around different addresses, and eventually came up with the excuse that he didn't see the contract, he didn't see the terms and conditions, even though we use a system called Better Proposals. I recommend anybody in a service-based industry has a look at Better Proposals, because with Better Proposals, we create the proposal online, it gets sent out to the potential client, they log in, we get a notification as soon as they've logged in. It tells us who's logged in and what device device they've logged in out, so we can see if they've logged in on an iPhone or if they've logged in on a PC or a tablet or a Mac. We can see that. An interesting point, people are more likely to sign a proposal if they log in on a desktop computer than a phone. Point of note there. So we can see what they've logged in. We can see what pages of the proposal they've looked at. So we can see that he's gone through the terms and conditions. We can see how long he's spent on each page of the terms and conditions. So we knew that was a lie as well. And it went to court and it got really nasty. And we ended up losing a load of money from it. And I thought, I'm never want to deal with this absolute scumbag again. And then I found out that actually he'd done this before. He'd done it before. I didn't want to tell people about this. I didn't want to broadcast it because it's like, well, you're going to come off as the bad guy if you end up saying this. You know, if you start talking about people that have ripped you off and you start bad-mouthing them, you're going to look like the bad guy. Because, oh, look how bitter he is by saying that. And I know he's been slagging me off to other people. I know this for a fact because they've told me. They have told me because he's not as popular as he thinks he is. So I know he's doing this anyway, and you notice I've not named him here, and I'm not going to name him here. So if you're waiting for me to name the person, I'm not going to. So rest assured, that's okay. I'm not going to get into trouble for that one. But he's been slagging me off. I know that. He's been slagging us off, saying that we weren't creative. We didn't create a website for him. Look how shit it was. It's because we did exactly what you asked us to do. It's in the proposal. This is what you wanted. So this is what we did. So fuck you. And yeah, he didn't pay. So I didn't go announcing this around a networking group because, you know, it's not a good thing to do. It's not a good look. Doesn't reflect well on me. Doesn't reflect well on us if I start doing that. But then it turns out he wanted to come along to my networking meeting. He wanted to visit. The absolute balls of the man. He wanted to come in and visit. It's like, what the fuck? You've ripped us off. You owe a shitload of money. You lied in court. And now you want to turn up to my fucking networking meeting and stare me in the eye? No. So I had to explain why that would be a bad idea. And then it turns out somebody else came forward in our networking group and said, oh yeah, he's done that before. What? He's what? He's done that before? Yeah, he's done that before. In another group, in another region, he's ripped off quite a few people and left owing them all money. What? Why didn't I know that? If I'd known that, then I wouldn't have worked with the prick in the first place. If I'd known his MO was to not pay people and then piss off owing them money, I wouldn't have touched him with a barge pole. Because we've had a few people like that over the years. We've thought, I'm not so sure about you. So we've asked previous digital marketing agencies, previous web designers they've worked with, and been told, oh yeah, don't work with that guy. He won't pay. And we've managed not to touch them. But this guy we didn't know. And this is the problem. You see, this is what the whole point of my post on LinkedIn was about. This is the point of what this podcast is about. I'm not here naming someone because I'm not going to do that. Because that's not what I do. That's not what I'm about. What I want to know is from you, what would you do about it? Do you tell people if somebody rips you off? Do you tell people what they've done? Not to badmouth them, not to slag them off, but to warn others in case it happens to them. Because there was someone in our group that was saying, oh, he seems nice. He's like, whoa. If you work for him, make sure he pays you up front. Because I know there's a lot of people that get ripped off. And some businesses can't take it. Some businesses, if they get ripped off, it's going to be a real problem for them. If they don't get paid, maybe they can only do 1 or 2 jobs at a time. Like particular industries, like, I don't know, for example, like an electrician, for example. If he's working on his own and he's doing a house rewire, he's doing that for, a week, 5 days, maybe 2 weeks if it's a big house, it's a big job. If he doesn't get paid for that, that's half the month's work gone. And that's going to be really detrimental. So there are some industries where if you don't get paid, it can destroy your business. Now with us, luckily, we've got over 100 web design clients. We've got something like 200 clients in total. One person not paying us isn't going to break us. It's not, quite frankly. You know, it's a drop in the ocean. But it's the principle of the thing. If he does that to someone else, it could break them. It could be devastating to their business. And I don't want that to happen. There's some people in our networking group who quite frankly, they need paying clients. They need people who are going to pay on time. And, we all need that, really. So I don't want them to suffer the same as we did. So what's your take on this? I'd love to know. If you want to put comments below the YouTube video for this, and the link for that, if you're not watching on YouTube, will be on the podcast. Let me know. What would you do about this? Would you out them? Would you go on and say, look, it's this person, they didn't pay? Because it is a fact. I could do that. There's nothing stopping me doing that. But I don't really want to out that to the world and start, because it's not going to reflect well on me. Do you tell people in confidence, this is what happened? Do you tell your networking group, this is what happened? So that they all know not to use that person. They all know not to go into business with them, because there's a very high likelihood they're not going to get paid if they do. What's your take on this? And why, as a society, do we hide away from this? Do we keep quiet when someone does something like this? Do we just not tell people? Because it opens the door for others to get ripped off as well. So I think I've got away with this. I don't think I've got myself into any legal trouble, but I'll have the editors check this over just in case. And I'll catch you on the next podcast.